the sports world changed this morning. The New York Jets and Woody Johnson have fired Coach Robert Saleh.
You're fired. Get out of here. You're fired.
Okay, so let's just get right into it. Robert Saleh got fired, and everyone is shocked, not because he's a good coach or anything, because he's not, but for how early in the season the Jets pulled the plug on him. I mean, the man got off his London flight, went into work on Tuesday, and Woody Johnson was just standing there ready to hand him the axe, which is pretty messed up. But the funniest part of this whole thing to me is that this crazy move the Jets made by firing Saleh is not going to change anything. Now, let's put a pin in the Saleh situation for a second, and let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, because despite all the reports from Woody saying Aaron didn't have anything to do with this whatsoever, I don't know about you, but I'm sorry. I just don't believe that even for a second. I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers is the GM out there, but there's no way this news was a complete surprise to Rodgers, especially after all the clips that have surfaced between Rodgers and Saleh. So this means now more than ever, this isn't interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich's team. Instead, this is Aaron Rodgers' team, because that's the only way I can even begin to explain how Nathaniel Hackett also didn't get tossed overboard along with Robert Saleh. Very publicly, Hackett and Rodgers have a strong relationship from their Green Bay days, and basically bringing in Aaron Rodgers a few years back came with the package deal of also hiring Nathaniel Hackett as the offensive coordinator. And in year number one, it was a mess. Aaron Rodgers died in week one, as we all know, and with Zach Wilson at QB, everyone gave Hackett a pass, but kept a very watchful eye on him for the next season. And remember, this was a guy that was one of the worst head coaches ever who had to give up play calling duties back in Denver. So in 2024, and from what we've seen so far this year, it's clear that Nathaniel Hackett is still a moron. And you can make the case that this 2024 Jets offense is worse than the Zach Wilson-led Jets last year. Now, personally, I think a lot of it is just variance. I've actually been pleasantly surprised by Aaron Rodgers for the most part, and he's still a borderline top 10 QB in my eyes. But there's no denying that so far this season, the Jets offense has failed to feature their best two players, Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, outside of like one game each. And a team with as much offensive talent on it as the Jets, with Hall, Wilson, Braylon Allen, who's looked very explosive and better than Hall at times, Tyler Conklin is solid, Mike Williams, and Aaron Rodgers are bottom 10 in points per game and bottom 10 in yards per play. And even the players are calling out the offense. Garrett Wilson just outright cried for help to the media, basically saying, hey, I'm watching other teams out there like the Chiefs and Lions, and we're just playing a whole nother game. We run the same damn plays, and it's not working. So the offense has been atrocious and beyond disappointing, scoring the same amount of points through 5 weeks as the Zach Wilson-led Jets. But riddle me this. If this is a team that is struggling mainly on offense and has defensive problems too, but has also been ravaged by injuries on that side of the ball, and for the past few years, the Jets defense has proven they can be a top 3 to top 1 unit, why on God's green earth do you fire the head coach, who for all his faults can coach a defense really, really well, and come out and say that Nathaniel Hackett's job is not in danger whatsoever, and somehow have the gall to say this has nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers? Forgive me, but I'm calling bullshit. This firing has Aaron Rodgers' fingerprints all over it, and unless Saleh was just the worst motivational speech giver of all time, I don't see a world where this is the move that the Jets needed to make to turn their season around.
We're not a championship level team right now. We're not.
Joe Burrow is playing amazing football, and if the Bengals were 5-0, he would probably be the front runner for the MVP award. I mean, from weeks 3 through 5, Burrow was averaging well over 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns a game, but the Bengals only won one of those games, and that was against the Carolina Panthers. So what's wrong? I mean, if it weren't for Joe Flacco and Jayden Daniels, yes, I'm dead serious, Joe Burrow would also be leading the league in completion percentage and passer rating, but around him, the Bengals are just disintegrating. Last season, a year in which the Bengals didn't even make the playoffs, the defense gave up 22.8 points per game through week 5, which is not good. And in 2022, it was 17.8. In 2021, the year they made the Super Bowl, they gave up 20 points per game through week 5. Once again, all of that isn't good, but this year, during Burrow's MVP caliber season, that hasn't just been impressive, it's actually been necessary, because this Bengals team has been giving up 29 points per game. 29. It's been crazy to see this defense regress this much early on, and it also doesn't help that damn near the loudest defense in the league is also in Cincinnati, as they're making headlines with Cam Taylor-Britt trash-talking Jayden Daniels and Sam Hubbard's corpse getting stiff-armed into the underworld by Lamar Jackson. It's just been tough to watch, because there is still talent on the defense with Trey Hendrickson, Logan Wilson, Cam Taylor-Britt, and Geno Stone, but for some reason, Lou Anarumo just can't figure it out right now. And you know, as of now, the Bengals have possibly the best offense in football with one of the worst defenses, and time is running out for them to figure things out. And speaking of Jayden Daniels, he has been great, but as you probably know, even that is underselling his greatness. He has been shattering records every week, and that's even despite a relatively slow start where they got blown out by the Buccaneers. But since then, nobody has been able to contain this Commanders offense. There is no team averaging more points than this offense led by a dual-threat quarterback and Cliff Kingsbury. Something we've seen before and also, unfortunately, seen collapse before, but this Jayden Daniels season is even more impressive than what Kyler did back in the day, because not only is he a rookie, but mainly due to the pieces or lack thereof pieces around him, with Terry McLaurin, Daimi Brown, and Zach Ertz being his main pass catchers. And with that, Daniels has become the most efficient QB through 5 games by pure completion percentage ever. And I could go on and on about the records he's already set, becoming the first player in NFL history to record 1,000 passing yards and 250 rushing yards in his first 5 games, which is nuts. But after last year, when there was quiet MVP hype for CJ Stroud as a rookie, genuinely, if the NFL season ended right now, the voters would have no choice but to give the MVP to Jayden Daniels. He's simply contributing more points and value to his team than anyone else in football, creating highlight reels left and right, and me personally, I never saw this coming in my wildest dreams. Now, I'd consider this a good NFL season so far. I think you would too. It's definitely on track to be better than last year due to there being more parity and fun games overall, but with that being said, the injuries have been wild. And now, I talked about injuries more in my last video, but it seems like the top contenders in the league have suffered the most, with the 49ers in particular just looking like a completely different team this season. Jordan Mason has filled in for McCaffrey just about as good as he possibly could have, but he's just not Christian McCaffrey. And to be fair though, nobody is, but Mason's not the same spark plug threat to break off a 50-yard touchdown at all times like C-Mac is, and throw in injuries to Debo, Kittle, Ayuk slow start, and all the injuries to the defense, and that's how you get a 2-3 start for the best roster in football. And specifically on the defensive end, Javon Hargrave's season-ending injury has really crippled their run defense. So this team that was supposed to be another regular season juggernaut has instead been very vulnerable. And that's with them still having a top 3 defensive end in football and the best linebacker in the league. But the 49ers obviously haven't been alone in suffering injuries, as the Dolphins and Rams have quite literally just lost their seasons. It's over for them. While other contenders up there with the 49ers have also been nerfed heavily as well. Buffalo lost Teron Johnson and others, the Chiefs lost driving expert Rashee Rice, Philadelphia lost Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, and I could keep going on, but injuries just continue to be the worst part of sports, and it is truly unfortunate so many teams have lost parts of their season due to things being out of their control. In this offseason, we had no clue what Derrick Henry's value was on the market. There were just so many questions. Was he washed? Would he break the running back market? Would he get a veteran minimum? Anything could have happened, but as we know, guys like Josh Jacobs were just much more sought after by teams, and Henry was really only connected to the Ravens and Cowboys, and after Dallas bowed out because he was too expensive, he signed a 2-year, $16 million deal with the Ravens, and right now, it's looking like an absolute steal. The man just got a little bit more money than Tony Pollard and has outproduced him times like 8. Not only has the Ravens' offensive line been significantly better than expected after a rough start to the season, but Henry himself has looked great. Turns out, running behind a terrible offensive line in Tennessee for a while made him look worse than he did, and when a Hall of Fame talent finds himself next to Hall of Fame talent in Lamar Jackson, yeah, that's gonna be a problem for offenses. And so far, the Ravens have been up and down, but the rushing offense has been there when needed, and the only other guy to challenge Henry for the best offseason signing is maybe like Xavier McKinney, or maybe a guy like Sam Darnold, Patrick Queen, or Kirk Cousins, but only time will tell, because as of now, Derrick Henry has been that dude. Deshaun Watson is just the most dunked on player in sports right now, and almost 99% of that is deserving, because as of this point, he is the worst starting quarterback in the National Football League. Or at the very least, he's down there with guys like Gardner Minshew and Bo Nix, because it's just been an absolute disaster for Deshaun. If I had all the time in the world, I could talk for hours about everything that's gone wrong for Deshaun Watson so far in his career, and other people have done that, but honestly, in my mind, 50% of it is simple, while 50% of it genuinely cannot be explained with full certainty. Obviously, the dude is a terrible guy. Everyone says he's a terrible guy, and his mentality is nowhere near what it used to be in Houston, which has ravaged his ability to be consistent in the NFL. But I know he's had his fair share of shoulder injuries too, which can help to explain, at least to some extent, why his arm strength has quartered since his last good year in Houston. However, the man's pocket awareness, his accuracy, decision-making has just all turned to mush. He just can't play quarterback anymore, and after being handed a historic record-breaking $230 million guaranteed deal, the answer to his downfall might just be a little more obvious than looking at the film. A guy who's hated by everyone, including his own fan base, rightfully so if everything he's been accused of is somewhat true, what's his incentive to play well? Like, genuinely, why should Deshaun Watson care about getting better from a football perspective if his love for the game is gone and he's not having fun at all? Why should he try to get better? Now, I agree that that is a horrible perspective, but I think that's what it is. Deshaun just got lazy. He doesn't care as much as he once did, and he's not putting in those extra hours of reps after practice and in the film room, and that's why he's not only getting worse and is a liability on the field, but I'm not sure one man has destroyed a franchise more than Deshaun Watson has ruined the Browns in 2024 and also for the foreseeable future. It's over for them. But to finish this video off, I mean, I have to talk about the Raiders, man, because once again, we have been the leading comedy act of the NFL. Before the season, the best case scenario, which I bought into, was that with a hard-hitting lockdown defense, we could at least be competitive in every game we played in, even with mid to bad quarterback play. But so far this season, that has been the furthest thing from reality. Our run game is absolutely gone. The defense has not only looked bad after the Ravens win, but we've just given up. The tackling has gotten worse and worse by the game. And speaking of said culture, the thing that we hired Antonio Pierce for specifically, our culture that has only been not completely radioactive under Rich Bisaccia, has gone out the window again, as Michael Mayer and Devontae Adams are doing everything they can to force their way out of Vegas with reportedly zero communication from Antonio Pierce. And even AP himself has said he has no idea why Devontae wants to leave us, which is just scary to hear from the supposed leader of the franchise. And that's just off the field, because on the field, the most impressive thing we've done all season is find a way to allow 30-plus points to the Panthers and Broncos, two bottom-5 teams, while getting embarrassed in both games. And Gardner Minshew has also just played horrendous football. Somehow, the stats say he hasn't been that bad, but trust me, as someone who's watched every moment of every minute of this team, he's been that bad. Dude makes at least 5 bafflingly bad throws a game and really seems to have just lost his Minshew flair and swag he used to have in Jacksonville. Now, how much of that is also on Luke Getsy, honestly, I don't want to know. But if one thing's for sure, this team is hot ass. It's always been hot ass, and I'm a moron for thinking it was going to be anything different this year. But at least the grind for Cam Ward or Shadar Sanders has already started, because good lord does this team need a quarterback. Anyways, if you like this video, then subscribe, because I got a lot of videos on the channel just like this one. And if you did like this video, then watch this video I did a few weeks back on the confusing career of Eli Manning. It's pretty good, trust me. And thanks to all my Patrons for pledging $1. It truly does mean a lot. But anyways, until next time.